In early 2020, Gwen Hasselquist was found dead in the Puget Sound. Her death ruled as suicide but listed as COVID-19 in the obituary. Rumors swirled that her husband Eric, who quickly remarried and moved to Africa, might have been involved. As the world faced a pandemic, this case was barely noticed, yet those close to Gwen felt something was terribly wrong. Eric's odd behavior and rapid changes after her death raised many questions. But what if the truth is more sinister than anyone knows? Join us as we dive into the darkness of this mystery. The story begins on March 19, 2020. The U.S. Senate announces a $1 trillion stimulus package. The Department of Education issues guidelines for online learning, and Italy's COVID-19 death toll surpasses China's. In Gig Harbor, Washington, Eric Hasselquist posts on social media that his wife Gwendolyn has tested positive for the coronavirus. The next day, Gwen's body is found floating in the Puget Sound. The case received little public interest, but it drastically affected those who knew Gwen. The obituary suggests the virus was her cause of death, yet the coroner ruled it a suicide. How did she drive herself 15 miles, 24 kilometers, to the Tacoma Narrows Bridge after taking 60 benzodiazepine pills? Who was the man a witness claims was in the vehicle with her? Why did Eric, just months later, remarry and move to his new wife's home country in Africa, leaving his and Gwen's 2 children in the U.S.? This case is not well known. There are no news articles about it. A Google search of Gwen's name leads to her obituary, a single account each on Instagram and Flickr, and the website of 2 true crime podcasts. The Locations Unknown podcast has 4 episodes totaling 8 hours, featuring Andy, an attorney with a personal connection to the case. Locations Unknown is the primary source for most of the information here, cross-referencing other sources as needed. They submitted FOIA requests to several agencies and received the police reports from the Pierce County Sheriff's Department available on their website. Episode 50 lays the groundwork through Andy's account of the events. Episode 53 follows up with police reports, and episodes 66 and 68 feature extensive interviews with Gwen's loved ones. The Hasselquists lived outside the town of Gig Harbor, located at the north end of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. On March 19, 2020, Eric posts on social media announcing Gwen's coronavirus diagnosis. At 5:46 the next morning, Eric posts a video on Facebook from their home's Ring doorbell, announcing Gwen's disappearance and asking for help finding her. Gwen is seen exiting the home alone, appearing inebriated and confused. The video was described by Andy as really creepy to watch. Later that same morning, Eric posts on social media again. Today I've watched the sunrise knowing my love likely didn't get to see it. Around 3:20 that afternoon, police responded to a kayaker reporting a body floating in the water about 6 miles, 10 kilometers south of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Gwen has multiple cuts on her left hand and wrist, not believed to be self-inflicted. The police report states Gwendolyn may have had the observed injury to the back of her left hand prior to leaving the residence. On October 25, 2020, another police report states the medical examiner's report finds the cause of death to be multiple traumatic injuries due to fall. The manner of death ruled suicide. Additionally, benzodiazepine was detected in the decedent's blood, but the dosage and other details are not mentioned. Around midnight the previous night, a minivan had been found near the middle of the bridge by a state trooper. The van appeared to have been in a crash, with every passenger side window broken out. A witness was seen reaching into the van as the trooper arrived, behaving erratically. The witness claims to have been offered a ride by a female driver, with a passenger in the back of the van. The woman stopped the car, got out, and gifted the car to the witness. Officers checked the car's registration and visited Eric's home at 12:53 that night to inform him that his vehicle had been found. Eric stated his wife was home with him, and the officer noted in the police report that Eric seemed noticeably unfazed by his vehicle being found stolen. Because Gwen was thought to have COVID, the officers did not enter the home or verify she was there that night. The witness later amended his story, stating he saw a dark figure over the guardrail before it disappeared, but could not identify if it was the woman or if the figure jumped. The witness identified Gwen from a photo, but could not identify Eric's photo. The witness was released from custody. On October 31, 2020, a final police report is filed. It notes a number of family, friends, citizens familiar with Gwendolyn came forward with concerns that her death was not an act of suicide. Gwen was said to be doing well, reforging old familial bonds, expressing a positive and optimistic outlook on life, and making plans for the future. It was discussed that she would never abandon her children intentionally. The report mentions Eric's concerning history and strange behavior following Gwen's death. He's an alcoholic with a history of domestic abuse towards Gwen and suicidal ideation. Eric insisted that Gwen was despondent over a recent COVID diagnosis, driving her to suicide. Days later, a family pet died. Eric was quick to explain on social media that the pet was also taken by COVID-19. Eric began isolating the children from Gwen's family and friends. The report concludes, though unusual, these documented circumstances do not readily identify any overt malicious intent behind Gwen's passing. However, they do present cause for consideration. Less than a month after Gwen's death, on April 16th, Eric posts on Instagram that his children encouraged him to start dating again. On May 31st, he expresses hope to find a woman. On June 11th, he announces that he got married the previous Sunday. On March 25th, 2021, Eric posts a photo of him and his wife on a plane, stating he's leaving the US to be with his wife and not coming back anytime soon. Episode 66 of Locations Unknown features an interview with Gwen's best friend Dawn, and episode 68 features an interview with Gwen's sister Dora. Dawn and Gwen's friendship goes back to high school. Gwen confided in Dawn about Eric's violent, alcoholic behavior. Dawn had, on at least one occasion, told her husband she thought Eric would someday kill Gwen. When Dawn visited Gwen and Eric in 2016, she described Eric as obsessed with running, abruptly leaving social engagements for a 17-mile run. The abandoned car was found 15 miles from the Hasselquist home, which Dawn believes Eric could have run in the time that elapsed between Gwen's death and the next time his location could be verified. On Gwen's birthday 2 weeks before her death, she told Dawn, "This is going to be my best year yet." Gwen was known to be an incredibly attentive and loving mother who would never leave her children. Dawn described Eric as incredibly blunt when delivering the news of Gwen's passing 4 days later. Dawn also described the detective as overwhelmed with other cases at the time of Gwen's death. After Gwen's death, Dawn reached out to Dora, who she only met once as a child, and both quickly agreed that something felt off, suspecting Eric's involvement in Gwen's death. Dora, Gwen's stepsister, reconnected with Gwen 7 weeks before her death. Dora visited Gwen and Eric with her family and initially thought all was well, but on the morning of March 20th, Eric texted Dora asking if she'd heard from Gwen. Dora described the home as feeling weird when she arrived that morning, despite Eric not wanting her to come over. Dora's daughter, who was studying mental health, cared for Gwen's children. On their way home on March 21st, Dora's daughter said one of Gwen's children told her there was a bloody knife and tissues on the counter, but Dada cleaned them up. After Dawn expressed suspicion of Eric, a third unnamed friend of Gwen, who also had not known Dawn or Dora, expressed the same concern. Gwen had once sent her children to this friend in Gig Harbor after one of Eric's outbursts. Dora believes Eric's second wife, Miriam, had no role in Gwen's death and speculates the marriage was transactional for a green card. After her father's death, Miriam returned to Kenya and was not allowed to return to the US. Dora was cut out of Eric's life around June or July after Gwen's death, even after she would drop everything to help him. Gwen's children described burning their mom's clothes so mom could take them to heaven. The car was described as looking like it sideswiped a bridge guardrail, yet months later, the responding state trooper told Dora there were wood fragments in the car. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge is made of metal and concrete. Shortly after Gwen's death, Eric mentioned he had to go to multiple banks to close Gwen's accounts. Loved ones believe Gwen may have been hiding money from Eric, planning to run away from him. Within weeks, Gwen's kids were calling Miriam Mom and referring to Gwen by name. During one of Eric's suicidal outbursts, Eric's kid called his grandparents in Wisconsin, who contacted Dora asking her to take the kids for a few days. Social services reached out to rehome the kids with Dora long term. However, by the time Dora arrived in Gig Harbor, the local police informed her that the kids had been placed with CPS in Tacoma. Dora communicated with CPS to begin the process for her to permanently take in the kids. When she arrived in Tacoma, Dora was told that due to her living in Oregon, the children could not be placed with her and would end up with distant family in Seattle. Dora felt the kids were in good hands, but described the home as not ideal for children. Dora, on the other hand, already had kids and had been with Gwen's kids through the ordeal. Shortly after the kids were relocated to their paternal grandparents in Wisconsin, Dora planned to visit them. However, Eric tightly restricted how much Dora could see the kids, leading her to cancel the trip. The kids were permanently rehomed with their grandparents in Wisconsin. The police work in this case seems inadequate, possibly due to the early pandemic's impact. Gwen's death appeared to be a suicide on the surface, but many questions remain. The bloody knife, the man seen in the car on the bridge, the toll booth attendants, and potential bridge cameras are all points of concern. Given a serious investigation, without the effects of the pandemic fog, this case needs a second look. Even some people who were friends of Eric before he met Gwen believe he killed her. At the time of the most recent episode of Locations Unknown, August 10, 2022, more interviews were lined up, including with Eric's friends. They've hit a dead end, but hopefully more attention can break through it. This case raises many questions. How did Gwen die? What did we miss? What other theories could there be? Let us know in the comments, smash that like and subscribe for more.